G'day, mate. When you think of Australia, what comes to mind? Maybe kangaroos hopping across the outback, the Sydney Opera House, or perhaps that laid-back Aussie accent. But beyond the stereotypes, Australia has one of the most unique and diverse cultures in the world. A rich blend of Indigenous traditions, British heritage, multicultural influences, and a distinctly modern identity. Today, let's dive deep into the culture of Australia, exploring its history, art, food, sport, values, and way of life. Long before British colonization, Australia was and still is home to the world's oldest continuous cultures. The Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have lived on this land for over 65,000 years, carrying with them traditions, stories, and ways of life that are deeply tied to the land itself. For Indigenous Australians, country is not just a physical place. It is a spiritual, cultural, and emotional identity. Country means the land, sea, rivers, sky, and everything living within it. People are born of country and they belong to it. This relationship shapes laws, customs, and responsibilities, creating a worldview where humans are caretakers rather than owners of the land. One of the most significant parts of this culture is the Dreamtime, or the dreaming. These are ancient stories of creation that explain how the world, animals, and landscapes came to be. In these stories, ancestral beings walked the land, shaping mountains, rivers, and sacred sites. Every rock, tree, and waterhole can have a spiritual meaning, and these places are cared for as part of cultural duty. Knowledge of Dreamtime stories is passed down through songlines, pathways across the land that map geography, history, and culture. A songline might guide someone across deserts, showing where to find water or food, but it also teaches laws and spiritual truths. These are remembered through songs, dances, and ceremonies known as corroborees, which combine music, storytelling, and movement to connect people with their ancestors and the land. Indigenous Australians also developed unique art forms. Rock art, some tens of thousands of years old, can be found in places like Kakadu National Park. Dot painting, bark painting, and body painting all hold symbolic meanings that represent connections to Dreamtime stories and country. Instruments like the didgeridoo, traditionally from Northern Australia, carry a deep cultural and spiritual significance, producing sounds that echo the natural world. Daily life was also shaped by innovation. Tools like boomerangs were not just for hunting, but also had ceremonial and symbolic uses. Fire was used to manage the land through firestick farming, an early form of environmental care that ensured balance in nature and prevented large bushfires. But Indigenous culture isn't only about the past. Today, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities continue to keep traditions alive while also engaging with modern Australia. Indigenous languages, of which there were once over 250, are being revived and taught to younger generations. Traditional practices are performed at cultural festivals and in schools, while Indigenous art is celebrated internationally as one of Australia's greatest cultural treasures. Most importantly, Indigenous voices are central in conversations about identity and reconciliation. From music by artists like Archie Roach and Jessica Mauboy, to powerful political movements like the Uluru Statement from the Heart, Indigenous people are shaping the future while honoring the past. The heritage of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples is not just a part of Australian culture, it is the foundation of it. It is a living culture, one that blends the ancient with the contemporary, reminding us that Australia's true story stretches back tens of thousands of years. In 1788, British colonization of Australia began with the arrival of the first fleet at Sydney Cove. What started as a penal colony for convicts soon grew into a settlement that would lay the foundation for modern Australia. The British brought with them their language, institutions, and traditions, which quickly became embedded in daily life. English became the dominant language, and the Westminster system of government, with its parliament, courts, and rule of law, was firmly established. Christianity, particularly Anglicanism, influenced social norms, education, and even holidays, with Christmas and Easter becoming part of the national calendar. But the British influence wasn't just political or religious. It also shaped culture and lifestyle. Early settlers adopted European farming methods, introducing sheep, cattle, and crops that transformed the land. British cuisine, roasts, pies, and puddings dominated colonial tables, although adapted to local conditions. Australia's humor, too, developed from its colonial beginnings. Convicts and settlers often used irony, sarcasm, and playful mockery to cope with harsh conditions and strict authority. Over time, this gave rise to the famously dry and cheeky Aussie sense of humor we recognize today. From these struggles emerged the cultural identity of the Aussie battler, the ordinary person who worked hard, faced challenges, and didn't give up. This identity was shaped by convicts who endured harsh punishments, bushrangers who defied authority, and pioneers who built lives in difficult conditions. The colonial period also laid the groundwork for national myths of resilience, independence, and mateship. While this era was marked by inequality and the dispossession of Indigenous Australians, it also created cultural traits of perseverance, egalitarianism, and a skepticism of authority that still define the Australian spirit today. After World War II, Australia opened its doors to migrants in what became one of the largest migration programs in history. The slogan at the time was to populate or perish, and millions of people were encouraged to settle in Australia. At first, many came from Europe, Italians, Greeks, Maltese, and Eastern Europeans, bringing with them languages, traditions, and strong community values. Italian cafes and Greek restaurants began to spring up, changing the face of Australian food and city life. From the 1970s onwards, immigration expanded further to include people from Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. Large communities from Vietnam, Lebanon, India, and China settled in Australia, each contributing unique cultural traditions. Vietnamese refugees introduced fresh herbs, rice paper rolls, and pho to Australian cuisine. Lebanese and Middle Eastern migrants brought falafel, hummus, and strong coffee culture. Indian Australians have helped make Diwali a nationwide festival, while Chinese Australians continue to celebrate the Lunar New Year with vibrant dragon dances and lantern parades in major cities. Today, Australia is recognized as one of the most multicultural nations in the world, with nearly half the population either born overseas or having at least one parent born overseas. In cities like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, it's common to walk down a single street and find Italian pasta, Chinese dumplings, Turkish kebabs, and Ethiopian injera side by side. This diversity has not only influenced food but also art, music, fashion, and even politics. Australia's multicultural identity is also expressed through national events. The National Multicultural Festival in Canberra brings together cultures from every continent, while events like the Greek Glendy Festival in Adelaide, the Moon Festival in Sydney, and Harmony Week nationwide highlight the celebration of diversity. Schools encourage cultural exchange days, where children wear traditional clothing, share food, and learn about each other's backgrounds. This cultural blending has made Australia more than just tolerant, it has made it inclusive. Unlike in some countries where cultural differences can divide, in Australia diversity is embraced as a strength. It has given the nation a unique global identity, shaped by ancient Indigenous heritage, colonial history, and the contributions of countless migrant communities. Multiculturalism is not just about food or festivals, it's about values too. It has fostered greater understanding, acceptance, and cooperation among communities. It's what makes Australia vibrant, resilient, and globally connected, where diversity isn't only accepted, it's celebrated as the heart of the nation's identity. English is the national language of Australia, but it's spoken with a twist, the famous Aussie slang. Australians are known for shortening almost everything. Afternoon becomes arvo, barbecue is a barbie, sunglasses are sunnies, and even McDonald's is simply called macca's. This habit of making language casual and friendly reflects the easygoing nature of Australian society. Beyond slang, the Australian accent itself is distinctive, clear, open, and often described as laid back. There are subtle regional variations, but overall it reflects Australia's cultural value of informality. Australians rarely stand on ceremony when they speak. First names are used quickly, even with teachers, bosses, or public figures. This reflects the egalitarian belief that no one is above anyone else. But English is not the only language in the country. Before colonization, there were more than 250 Indigenous languages spoken across Australia, each with its own dialects and rich oral traditions. While many of these languages are now endangered due to the impact of colonization and assimilation policies, there are strong efforts to revive and preserve them. In some schools and communities, children are learning local languages alongside English, reconnecting with culture and history. Australia today is also home to a multilingual society. Because of migration, you'll hear Italian, Greek, Mandarin, Arabic, Hindi, and Vietnamese in daily life, especially in cities like Sydney and Melbourne. In fact, over 20% of Australians speak a language other than English at home, highlighting the country's diversity. And of course, communication in Australia isn't just about words, it's also about humor. Australians are famous for their dry, self-deprecating wit. Jokes often involve poking fun at themselves, their friends, or authority figures. If an Aussie teases you, it's usually a sign of affection, not insult. Directness is also valued. People say what they mean without too much formality. All of these features, slang, humor, multilingualism, and informality, make Australian communication warm, approachable, and uniquely its own. Australia has a thriving and diverse arts scene that reflects both its ancient traditions and its modern creativity. Indigenous art is at the heart of it. Dot paintings, bark art, rock carvings, and weaving are more than just decoration. They are storytelling, history, and spiritual knowledge passed down through generations. Places like Arnhem Land and the Kimberley are home to rock art tens of thousands of years old, some of the earliest examples of human artistic expression in the world. In literature, Australian writers have given voice to the unique landscape, identity, and challenges of the nation. Patrick White, Australia's first Nobel Prize winner for literature, explored human struggles and spirituality. Tim Winton captures the raw beauty of the coast and ordinary lives in novels like Cloud Street. Film and television also play a powerful role in shaping Australia's image. From the iconic Crocodile Dundee and the dystopian Mad Max series, to internationally acclaimed films like Rabbit-Proof Fence and The Sapphires, Australian cinema often blends humor, resilience, and survival against the backdrop of the rugged landscape. The international success of actors like Hugh Jackman, Kate Blanchett, Nicole Kidman, and Chris Hemsworth has also put Australian talent on the world stage. Music is another cultural powerhouse. Rock bands like AC/DC, INXS, and Midnight Oil became global icons, while pop stars such as Kylie Minogue, Sia, and Troye Sivan brought Australian music into mainstream charts. Indigenous musicians like Archie Roach and Yothu Yindi have blended traditional stories with contemporary styles, creating powerful messages of identity and reconciliation. Modern groups like Tame Impala show how Australia continues to innovate in music and connect globally. The performing arts thrive as well. The Sydney Opera House, one of the world's most famous cultural landmarks, hosts ballet, opera, theatre, and contemporary performances. Meanwhile, festivals like Splendour in the Grass and the Adelaide Festival showcase Australia's creativity on a grand scale. Altogether, the arts in Australia, whether ancient rock paintings or modern electronic music, tell the nation's story, capturing its struggles, humor, resilience, and ever-evolving identity. Sport is practically a religion in Australia, woven into everyday life and national identity. Footy in particular isn't just a game, it's a cultural phenomenon, with massive crowds filling stadiums like the Melbourne Cricket Ground. Cricket, meanwhile, carries deep historical roots, with legendary Ashes battles against England becoming iconic moments of national pride. Tennis also has a special place in the sporting calendar. The Australian Open, held every January in Melbourne, is one of the 4 Grand Slam tournaments and attracts players and fans from all around the world. The famous horse race, the Melbourne Cup, is so influential it's said to stop the nation, with millions tuning in to watch. But in Australia, sport is not just about trophies or records, it's about community, fairness, and mateship. On weekends, you'll see kids playing barefoot cricket in the backyard, families gathering for local footy matches, and entire towns uniting around their community sports clubs. The idea of a fair go, giving everyone a chance, shines strongly in Australian sport, where teamwork and respect are valued just as much as winning. And of course, with over 30,000 kilometers of coastline, Australia is a world surf capital. Surfing isn't just a sport, it's a lifestyle, reflecting the country's love of the outdoors, the beach, and the ocean. Cities like Sydney, Gold Coast, and Byron Bay are famous for their surf culture, while surfers like Mick Fanning and Stephanie Gilmore have become global icons. Australia also has a proud history of international sporting success. From swimmers like Ian Thorpe and Kathy Freeman's unforgettable gold medal run at the Sydney 2000 Olympics, to modern tennis champions like Ash Barty, Australian athletes inspire both national pride and unity. For Australians, sport represents more than physical activity. It's about identity, belonging, and spirit. Whether on the beach, in a backyard, or on the world stage, sport is at the heart of the Aussie way of life. Australian cuisine is a true reflection of its multicultural society. blending British traditions, indigenous ingredients, and global influences. Traditional favorites like meat pies, sausage rolls, and lamingtons remain iconic, while the salty spread Vegemite continues to divide opinions. You either love it or you hate it. But modern Australian food is much more diverse. Thanks to migration, the nation's kitchens have been transformed by Mediterranean and Asian flavors. Italian migrants brought pasta, wood-fired pizza, and olive oil culture. Greek communities gave Australia souvlaki and fresh seafood traditions. Asian influences introduced stir-fries, noodles, dumplings, and sushi, which are now everyday meals for many Australians. Seafood also plays a major role, with prawns, barramundi, and Sydney rock oysters enjoyed across the country. And let's not forget the Christmas tradition of prawns on the barbecue, celebrated under the summer sun rather than in the snow. Indigenous ingredients, often called bush tucker, such as kangaroo, wattle seed, and finger limes, are also making their way into modern restaurants, connecting contemporary cuisine with ancient traditions. Equally famous is Australia's coffee culture. Melbourne, often described as the coffee capital of the world, helped popularize the flat white and has set global standards for cafe culture. Coffee shops aren't just about a caffeine hit. They're a social hub where people gather, relax, and connect. The lifestyle in Australia mirrors this relaxed social approach to food. Australians love the outdoors, whether it's barbecues in the backyard, picnics in the park, or weekend trips to the beach. With its sunny climate and endless coastline, life often revolves around surfing, swimming, and outdoor sports. Australians also value work-life balance. Long holidays, weekend getaways, and an emphasis on family time reflect the cultural belief that leisure is just as important as work. The idea of mateship extends into lifestyle too, sharing meals, traveling together, and celebrating life's moments in the company of friends. Altogether, Australia's food and lifestyle are about community, diversity, and enjoyment. Whether it's a backyard barbie, a bustling cafe in Melbourne, or fine dining in Sydney, food and lifestyle in Australia embody the nation's spirit: open, welcoming, and laid back. Ask Australians what defines their culture, and you'll often hear words like fair go, mateship, and egalitarianism. Fair go is the belief that everyone deserves a chance no matter their background. It's the idea of justice and equality in everyday life, from the workplace to the sporting field. Mateship is about loyalty, trust, and standing by your friends, especially in tough times. It's a value that became legendary during wartime, but it's also alive in daily life. Whether it's helping a neighbor, cheering on a friend, or simply sharing a laugh. Egalitarianism means that no one is seen as better than anyone else. Australians generally dislike pretentiousness, and there's a cultural emphasis on humility and treating people equally, whether you're the CEO of a company or the person serving coffee. These values shape a national identity that's laid back but principled. Australians are known for being approachable, down-to-earth, and community-minded. They don't take themselves too seriously, and humor, often dry, sarcastic, and self-deprecating, is a big part of communication. At the same time, there's a growing recognition of the importance of Indigenous values and wisdom. Respect for the land, community connections, and storytelling traditions are increasingly seen as central to Australia's cultural identity. Modern Australian identity is also multicultural. Waves of migration have layered new traditions, languages, and perspectives onto the national character, creating a society that celebrates diversity while holding on to its core values of fairness, mateship, and equality. Altogether, the Australian identity is a mix of humor, resilience, openness, and inclusivity. It's about lending a hand, giving everyone a fair shot, and enjoying life with a sense of balance and community. Ask Australians what defines their culture, and you'll often hear words like fair go, mateship, and egalitarianism. Fair go is the belief that everyone deserves a chance no matter their background. It's the idea of justice and equality in everyday life, from the workplace to the sporting field. It's why Australians respect people who work hard and don't shy away from giving newcomers a shot at success. Mateship is about loyalty, trust, and standing by your friends, especially in tough times. It became legendary during wartime, when Australian soldiers looked after one another on the battlefield, and it continues today in everyday acts. Whether it's helping a neighbor fix their fence, volunteering during bushfire season, or simply showing up for a friend in need. Egalitarianism means that no one is seen as better than anyone else. Australians generally dislike pretentiousness or arrogance, Titles and status often matter less than personality. It's common to see a CEO having a beer with their employees at the local pub, because in Australia, respect is earned, not assumed. These values shape a national identity that's laid back but principled. Australians are known for being approachable, down-to-earth, and community-minded. They don't take themselves too seriously, and humor, often dry, sarcastic, and self-deprecating, is a big part of communication. A playful tease is often a sign of affection, not insult. At the same time, there's a growing recognition of the importance of Indigenous values and wisdom. Respect for the land, spiritual connection to country, and storytelling traditions are increasingly seen as central to Australia's cultural identity. The idea of caring for the environment and acknowledging ancient custodianship is becoming woven into what it means to be Australian today. Modern Australian identity is also multicultural. Waves of migration from Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and Africa have layered new traditions, languages, and perspectives onto the national character. This has created a society that celebrates diversity while holding on to its core values of fairness, mateship, and equality. And of course, Australians have their own everyday philosophy captured in sayings like, "No worries" or "She'll be right." These reflect optimism, resilience, and a belief that even when things go wrong, life will work itself out. Altogether, the Australian identity is a mix of humor, resilience, openness, and inclusivity. It's about lending a hand, giving everyone a fair shot, and enjoying life with a sense of balance and community. It's a culture that blends ancient traditions, colonial history, and multicultural energy into something uniquely and proudly Australian. Hope you enjoyed exploring the food, art, sport, and traditions of Australia. Show your support by liking and sharing this video, and don't forget to subscribe. There's plenty more cultural adventures coming your way.